The chains of Victrith crowd roared as the arena gates opened, their voices echoing across the blood-stained sands like thunder from a storm that had long forgotten mercy. Overhead, banners of alien empires rippled under the artificial sky. Dome, each symbol representing a world that had once defied the Galactic Syndicate and lost. The arena was their punishment, their lesson, their humiliation, and now it was home to a new rumor. A strange one. In the shadows beyond the rusted bars, a young human named Darren waited quietly, his breathing steady despite the tremble in the metal beneath his bare feet. He had no armor, and no enhancements, no sponsors. He wasn't bred in a vat, nor trained in zero-gravity warfields. He was just ... a human, and a small one at that. Many laughed when they saw him until the announcer's voice crackled through the arena's system. Introducing Challenger 7-1-9... the last. Volunteer from Earth. They always added last as if humans were extinct. But they weren't, not completely. Not yet. Above the battlefield, in a golden cage suspended by gravitational tethers, she watched him silently. Her name was Zeralai. Her skin shimmered like polished bronze. Her eyes, sharp and distant, missed nothing. She was the prize of the arena, half warrior, half queen, and bound by a cruel wager. The alien syndicate had claimed her after her world fell, and now she stood for nothing but spectacle. They promised her freedom to whoever could win 10 consecutive death duels without breaking a single rule. So far, no one had come close. And yet here stood a human. No weapon, no armor. No chance, you will die quickly, muttered the alien. Beside Darren, a gray-skinned enforcer with 6 arms and glowing fangs. They always do. Darren looked up, not at the enforcer, but at Zeralai. For a brief moment, something flickered behind his calm eyes. Not fear, not arrogance, something deeper. A strange sadness mixed with quiet defiance. Then he whispered, under his breath, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to remember." The gates clanged open. The enforcer rushed forward with a snarl, weapons raised. The crowd leaned in, hungry for blood. But Darren moved differently. He didn't fight like a warrior. He ducked, stepped, shifted, as if he was dancing with gravity itself. His movements were human but refined by something that didn't come from strength. It came from pain, from memory. The first strike missed, then the second, then the third. Darren touched nothing but air, and yet the enforcer stumbled as if his mind couldn't keep up. And then, with a sudden twist, Darren leapt forward, not to strike, but to knock the enforcer into one of the arena's charged spires. The alien screamed as his own weapon discharged, electrocuting his body and sending him limp to the ground. Silence filled the arena, stunned, disbelieving. Above, Zeralai tilted her head ever so slightly. "A trick," spat one of the broadcasters. "Luck." But Zeralai knew better. There was something strange about the human. Not in his strength, but in his restraint. He hadn't killed when he had the chance. He hadn't even hesitated. He had simply survived. In a place built to break people. Down on the sand, Darren stood still, looking at the crowd like they weren't even there. His hand rested on his chest, over something beneath his torn shirt, a necklace perhaps, or maybe a scar. No one could tell. Then he whispered again, "One down." From the far tunnel, the next gate rumbled. But this time, the crowd didn't cheer. They watched. They waited. And high above, for the first time in years, Zeralai's heart beat faster. The breath before the storm. The second gate opened with a slow, grinding screech. Steam hissed through the cracks as a towering creature stepped into the light, 8 feet tall, covered in metallic blue scales and dragging a double-headed axe that left sparks in its trail. The arena shuddered beneath its steps. This was the Morkrov, a predator bred only for war. No emotion, no language. Just instinct. The announcer's voice boomed once again, trying to inject excitement into a crowd that had grown strangely quiet. And now the second duel. Let's see if the human's luck still holds. Darren didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He stood in the center of the arena like he belonged there, small, unarmed, barefoot, with a quiet stare that unsettled even the trained guards watching from above. His silence wasn't bravado. It was something deeper. A calm carved from something no one else could see. From her cage above, Zeralai narrowed her eyes. The more she watched him, the more she felt it, the way he moved, the way he breathed. It wasn't the style of warriors. It was the rhythm of survival. And not just any survival, human survival. The kind built on loss, on learning when to run, when to fight, and when to endure without breaking. The Morkrov lunged. Its weight shook the ground as it swung the axe with terrifying speed. Any normal fighter would have been crushed. But Darren dropped low, letting the blade pass over, his head like a storm cloud missing its strike. His foot slid through sand as he rolled forward, wrapping his arm around the Morkrav's leg and twisting. A normal fighter would have used brute strength, but Darren used the creature's momentum. Its weight shifted, just barely but enough. With him. A thundering crash, the Morkrav hit the arena wall head first, dazed for half a second. That was all Darren needed. He didn't kill it. He leapt onto the beast's back and drove his fingers deep into the nerve junction behind its skull, a weakness known only to those who studied, who listened. The Morkrav dropped with a groan, still breathing, but no longer a threat. The arena didn't know how to react. Some began to clap, confused. Others booed. No blood, no death. And yet the human had won again, from above. One of the syndicate overlords leaned forward, his scaled hand gripping the balcony rail. Who trained this human? He hissed. But no one answered. Back inside the holding bay after the gate closed. Behind him, Darren leaned against the cold wall, his breath shallow. He looked down at his trembling hands. His body was starting to break. His strength was never meant to last. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny metal locket. Inside, the image of a child and a woman. Earth clothing. Old, faded. He stared at it like it was the only thing keeping him standing. Two down. He whispered. Then, from the shadows, a voice spoke. Not a guard. Not a fellow prisoner. It was her. You fight like someone who has already lost everything. Darren looked up. XE relay stood beyond the energy bars of her observation chamber. She must have ordered to be brought down closer to him. No prize had ever done that before. He didn't answer her. Not at first. Finally, he said, I lost them. But not the promise. She tilted her head. Promise? They told me if I made it to the arena and survived 10 rounds, they'd grant one wish. She scoffed. You believe that lie? He looked her straight in the eyes. No fear, no anger, no. But someone might. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the electric bars buzzed softly in the silence. XE relay could feel it now. This wasn't about winning her. Not really. This human wasn't trying to defeat his enemies. He was trying to keep a memory alive. He was here for someone else. But who? And why did it matter so much? Just then, alarms blared overhead. Something had changed. The next opponent had been moved up early. No rest. No delay. Darren didn't react. He stood. Bring him in, a voice ordered through the speakers. Let's see what breaks first, his body or whatever's left of his mind. Zeralai reached for the bars as he passed. What's your name? She asked. He paused. Darren. I don't want to be anyone's prize, she said quietly. He looked at her, eyes tired but clear. Then fight with me, he replied. Then the gate opened again, and the crowd's roar returned. The breaking point arena lights dimmed, then pulsed red. This time, It wasn't just another opponent. This was something different. Engineered. Faster. Smarter. Crueler. The crowd knew it. They felt it. The shift in air, the tension in the silence. Even the announcer's voice hesitated before speaking. Round 3 begins now. Out from the gate walked a creature not bred, but designed. Tall, lean, moving with mechanical precision. Its skin gleamed like obsidian, smooth and cold. Its eyes, two burning slits of yellow, scanned everything with inhuman calm. It was a hybrid, part biological assassin, part machine. A prototype. The syndicate wanted the human broken now. Darren stood in the center of the sand, the air thick. Around him. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his eyes didn't move from the creature. He didn't need an introduction. He could feel it. This wasn't about testing him anymore. This was about ending him. In the stands above. Zeralai clenched the rail of her observation cage, heart pounding harder than she wanted to admit. Something about this opponent felt wrong. Too silent. Too perfect. Inside the arena, Darren took a single breath and closed his eyes. I can't win this one with movement, he whispered to himself. It learns too fast. The hybrid didn't charge. It walked, calm, precise. It circled him slowly, reading every twitch, every weight shift, every blink. And Darren let it. He dropped to one knee and dragged his fingers into the sand. At first, the crowd thought he had collapsed. But Zeralai leaned forward. She could see it. He was drawing something, not random lines. A pattern, circles, echoes of something she hadn't seen in years. Old Earth tactics, terrain manipulation, misdirection. The hybrid lunged, fast, too fast. It reached him in a blink. And then dust exploded. A small pocket of crushed sand ignited with static charge. Something Darren had planted with broken fragments from the last round. Not enough to injure the hybrid, but enough to blind it for 1 second. 1 second was all he had. He moved under the creature's leap and jammed both thumbs into a joint behind its arm, an override node exposed during forward movement. He didn't have to destroy it. He just had to shut it down. The hybrid twitched violently, locked, collapsed in silence. The arena froze. Then chaos. The crowd erupted into disbelief. No one was supposed to win 3 rounds. Not like this. Not a human. Not without weapons. Not with nothing but instinct, memory, and pain. Darren fell to his knees, breathing hard. Blood leaked from his nose. His limbs shook. But he was alive. From the control balcony, the syndicate overlord snarled, his voice low and furious. Send in the next one now. No rest, no delay. But another voice cut in over the comms, sharp female. He has earned the rules of the old code, Zeralai said. You cannot deny him the rest interval. Silence followed. Then the overlord's response. He fights. For a prize, not privilege. Zeralai stepped forward, eyes fierce. I am the prize, and I invoke Sanctuary Clause. The crowd gasped. No one had invoked that clause in over a century. It was a forgotten piece of syndicate law. If the prize speaks in defense of the fighter and declares a recognition of honor, the match must pause. The overlords couldn't override it. Below, Darren looked up at her. He didn't smile. Didn't nod. He just whispered, thank you. Later, in the quiet rest chamber carved beneath the arena floor, Darren sat alone on a stone bench, hands shaking. His body was near its edge. He had trained for pain, for exhaustion, but he hadn't trained for this many eyes. This much weight. A soft hiss of steam made him turn. XE relay entered. This time, there were no bars between them. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. I should, she replied. She walked over and sat across from him. Why do you do this? She asked. You don't want glory. You don't crave freedom. What are you fighting for? He opened the small locket again and handed it to her. Inside was a drawing, child's crayon. A star. A house. 3 stick figures. My daughter drew that the day before she was taken, he said, voice breaking for the first time. We were running. We hid in the underground stations when the syndicate glassed our city. Zarelai blinked. Her chest tightened. She had heard of Earth's fall, but no details had ever escaped the syndicate records. The deal was simple, he continued. They said if anyone survived 10 rounds, they'd allow one family to leave the slave colonies. Not a lie, not a guarantee, just ... A deal. You believe they'll keep it? I don't care, he said. I just want them to remember her name, Imari. Even if they lie, someone will have heard it by then. Zarelai closed the locket and handed it back. She studied him carefully. You were never fighting for me, she whispered. He shook his head. No, but I would never let anyone use you again either. She stood to leave. 3 down, he muttered, staring at the wall. 7 more to go. She paused at the door. Rest while you can. The next round won't be fair. He didn't look at her. They never are. The rule they never speak. Fourth gate opened before the rest period had fully ended. A breach of arena law. But no one protested. Not the syndicate lords. Not the announcers. Not the guards. They were tired of watching a human win. Darren had barely stood up when the next opponent stepped through, massive, armored, and eerily silent. Not a beast. Not a machine. This one was different. Its armor was scorched with names of every fighter it had slain. Its face was hidden beneath a bone mask that had never been removed, and its fists crackled with heat from built-in plasma coils. XE Relay stood frozen in her cage. She knew this one. They're sending the Reaper, she whispered. In the shadows of the arena's high balcony, even the broadcasters lowered their voices. The Reaper wasn't a competitor. It was a punishment, a symbol. When they wanted to erase someone quietly, they sent it in. No questions, no victory ceremony. Just silence. Darren didn't back away. He limped forward. His breath was shallow, his arms sore, and his vision flickered with pain. But he walked toward the Reaper like a man who had already accepted something inside himself. Above. Zarelai slammed her fist against the control glass. This violates combat code, she shouted. No. Response. She turned toward a nearby syndicate officer. Call it off. But the officer smiled, calm and cruel. He is human. The code does not apply to relics. Zarelai's pulse raced. She had heard that word used before, relic. It meant the syndicate no longer saw you as part of the galaxy. A thing, a memory. Not even a species, just dust. But as she watched Darren, she realized something else. He had expected this. From the start, on the sand, the Reaper moved first. Not fast. Just heavy. Its steps cracked the stone beneath the arena layer. It raised one arm and fired a blast of superheated air. Darren rolled, barely dodging the shockwave, but he winced. His shoulder twisted awkwardly. Something tore. He was slower now, and the Reaper was just getting started. The second strike came like a hammer. Darren blocked with his arm, using a piece of broken hybrid plating from the last round as a makeshift shield. It exploded in his hand, burning his skin. The crowd murmured. This wasn't a fight. This was a sentence. Darren staggered backward, falling to one knee. His vision blurred. Then he heard it, a voice, faint through the arena's walls. Get up. Zarelai whispered, but it wasn't just words. She was speaking through the emergency override mic, one that hadn't been used since the old wars. You are not their dust, she said, louder now. You are not their relic. Darren blinked. The pain stayed. But something else rose inside him. Memory. A softer one. His daughter's voice, small, giggling in a sunlit field. her fingers tugging his hand, her pointing at the stars. You said we'd fly one day, Papa. He stood. Barely. The Reaper charged. Darren ran straight into it. Instead of trying to dodge, he used the enemy's force. He slammed his hands into the base of its helmet, twisted, and drove the creature into the electro-pylon behind them. Electricity surged. The Reaper screamed a sound no one had ever heard from it. It dropped. And this time, it didn't get back up. The arena went completely silent. Even the Syndicate Lords didn't speak. No one had ever survived the Reaper.exe relay. Exhaled sharply, her hand still trembling near the control mic. Down below, Darren collapsed. Not from fear. Not from pain. From the sheer weight of everything he carried. Guards rushed in, unsure whether to help or finish him. But one held up a hand. Stop. The prize is called Code 49. All froze. Code 40-9. The call of Sanctuary.exe relay single quotes S. Voice echoed through the arena. Steady now. By invoking the code, I declare him no longer a competitor. But a witness. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Darren, barely conscious, whispered, "What are you doing?" Saralai stepped down from her cage, walking slowly across the sand toward him. "If they won't follow their own rules," she said, kneeling beside him, "then I will remind them who first wrote them." "They'll kill you," he muttered. "Maybe," she said. "But if I fall, they'll know someone stood." She turned toward the lords above, "And I won't be a prize anymore." The crowd didn't cheer, but they didn't look away either. For the first time in a century, someone had broken the unspoken rule of the arena, not by violence, but by remembering something the Syndicate had forgotten. Honor. And in that moment, the human no one believed in wasn't alone anymore. The promise in the dust. Arena's silence stretched long after Zaralai knelt beside Darren. The crowd, once hungry for blood, now leaned forward with something unfamiliar burning in their eyes. Uncertainty, curiosity, a whisper of respect. Above, the Syndicate Lords argued behind glass, their voices sharp and fractured. She broke protocol. No, she invoked Code 49. That code is obsolete. Then why is the crowd still watching? Inside the sandpit below, Zaralai helped Darren to his feet. His face was pale, streaked with blood and sweat, but his eyes were still awake. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice barely. "A rasp, and you shouldn't have survived 4 death rounds with no armor," she replied softly. "Yet here we are." He gave a weak laugh, then winced. "I don't even know how many ribs are still intact." "Probably none," she said, "but your spine's still stubborn." Together, they walked toward the center of the arena. No guards moved, no weapons raised. The rules had been thrown into the fire and no one knew what came next. Then, a fatin. Blinding flare of light split the sky. A new voice echoed from the arena speakers. Cold, mechanical. Override confirmed. Prize protocol reset. Fighter 719 to be removed. Zaralai's body went rigid. They had overridden her sanctuary clause. A betrayal. The sand near the edge of the arena cracked, and out of it rose something enormous. Not a creature. Not a warrior. A machine. 30 feet tall, forged from scorched black steel, etched with the sigil of the Syndicate Council. It wasn't here to fight. It was here to erase. Darren stared at it with hollow eyes. "They're afraid," he whispered. Exe relay nodded. "Yes, but not of you winning." "Then what?" "Of what you remind them." The crowd slowly began to rise, not out of fear, out of realization. For so long, the arena had been a place of spectacle, blood, humiliation. But now one human, barely alive, had exposed the truth beneath it all. The cruelty, the cowardice, the forgotten code. The giant machine raised its arm, a weapon locked in place. A single blast, meant to vaporize its target without a trace. Xe relay stepped in front of Darren. Don't, he croaked, but she raised her chin. Someone has to stand. Before the weapon could fire, a voice thundered from the far side of the arena. A voice older than all of them. That's enough. The crowd turned. From the archway near the outer wall, an old alien figure walked forward, robes dragging behind him. His eyes were blind, but his voice saw everything. Elder Torin. Someone gasped. The oldest living author of the arena code. Long thought dead. The lords above hissed and shouted, but no one dared stop him. He raised a hand. The machine froze. You've twisted the laws, he said, turning his face toward the balcony. You turned tradition into torture, honor into entertainment. And now, one human shamed you all. He's nothing, a syndicate voice spat. A relic. Torin turned to Darren. What's your name, boy? Darren, he said, almost choking. And why did you fight? Not to win, Darren said. To keep a promise. Torin nodded. Double quotes, and that, he said slowly, makes him greater than any of you. Then he pointed to Zeralai. She stood for him. Now I stand for her. And if you fire that weapon, the galaxy will remember who you are, not rulers, but cowards. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in a wave of noise that cracked the stadium walls. A roar of resistance. Of truth. The syndicate's control began to fracture. The machine's arm lowered. Darren swayed, nearly falling, but Zeralai caught him. You did it, she whispered. He shook his head. Not yet. From the far corner of the arena, a final gate opened. The announcer's voice returned, shaken. Final round. Unlocked by override. Zeralai's face went pale. They're still trying to finish it. One last round. No rules. A massive figure stepped out, cloaked in fire armor, carrying 2 swords of fused plasma, taller than even the Reaper. Who is that? Darren asked. Xe relay didn't speak. She didn't have to. He saw the symbol on the warrior's chest. It wasn't Syndicate. It was human. In exile. Abetrayer. A warlord who had sold out Earth to the Syndicate for survival. They want to make you fight your own kind. Zeralai whispered. Darren stared at the warrior. Then he took a breath, deeper than any before, and stood on his own. Then I'll remind him, he said, what it means to be human. The soul beneath the ash final challenger stood like a mountain of scorched metal and forgotten honor. His armor bore the old Earth flag, twisted, blackened, melted into the sigil of betrayal, a symbol not of pride, but shame. He had been one of the first humans to kneel before the Syndicate. And in return, they gave him everything. His name was Commander Voss. Once a general. Now a weapon. Xe relay stepped in front of Darren again. You can't fight him, she said. Your body. It doesn't matter anymore, Darren replied. This fight isn't for me. It's for what he forgot. He limped forward into the center of the arena. Voss followed slowly, his boots cracking the stone with every step. His swords glowed red from the heat of stored plasma. Every movement was rehearsed, perfect. Deadly. They circled each other in silence. The crowd didn't cheer, not this time. They watched like people witnessing the final heartbeat of something. Ancient. Darren spoke first. You were supposed to protect them. Voss's voice came from behind the helmet, metallic, lifeless. I did what had to be done. Survival is victory. No, Darren said, his voice low but steady. Survival without soul is just breathing, and that's not living. Voss struck. The first swing sliced through air, barely missing Darren's chest. The second came fast, forcing Darren to dive into the sand. Pain exploded through his ribs. He could hardly move, but he didn't stop. He used the sand again, flicking a handful into Voss's visor just long, enough to scramble the optics. Then he rolled behind him, grabbed the hilt of one sword, and twisted. A flash of heat seared his palm. He screamed, but didn't let go. He didn't have the strength to overpower Voss. But he had something. Stronger. Memory. Emotion. Hope. He jammed the sword into the ground and shouted, "Look at me. Do you remember Earth's skies? Do you remember what it felt like to carry a child on your back and laugh?" Voss froze. For just a second. Darren's eyes filled with tears. "I remember the taste of burned bread in the winter, the sound of wind through broken windows. I remember singing songs during blackouts just to make my daughter smile." "Enough," Voss growled, raising the second blade. "She believed in stars," Darren said. "And when they bombed our sky to ash, she still looked up, still believed we'd fly one day." Voss's blade trembled. His breath grew uneven. "Left that behind," Darren said, stepping forward. "But I didn't, and I never will." Voss lunged, then stopped. His blade hit the ground beside Darren's feet. The crowd gasped. Voss dropped to his knees. Slowly. He reached up and removed his helmet. Beneath it was a face torn by age, scars, and silence. But his eyes were wet. "I forgot," Voss whispered. "I forgot what we were." Darren dropped beside him, breathing hard. "Then remember," he said. "Not for me, for everyone we left behind." The arena lights dimmed. Then they turned gold. A symbol not of victory, but of truth. Elder Torrens stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. He did not kill. He did not conquer. He reminded. And for that, this arena is broken and reborn. The crowd stood as one. Not in triumph, but in reverence. Relay ran to Darren, dropping beside him. She cupped his face, shaking with relief. "You did it," she whispered. But Darren shook his head. "No," he whispered. "We did." Guards approached, not to restrain. To help. For the first time in centuries, a champion left the arena not in chains, but on his feet. The Syndicate lords had fallen, silent. Their power fractured, their control exposed, and their greatest weapon, a single broken human, had just taught the galaxy what it truly meant to fight. Not for blood, not for glory. But for something deeper. Something they couldn't kill. The last promise kept. 3 days passed since the last duel. The arena gates were closed. The crowd had scattered. The banners of fallen empires no longer fluttered with pride, but with shame. Something had changed, not in the steel of the walls or the blood in the sand, but in the hearts of those who had watched. Something they hadn't expected to feel. Respect. Infirmary lights buzzed softly as Darren lay on a padded bed, wrapped in bandages, eyes closed but not asleep. Machines monitored his pulse, his brain waves, his broken ribs. The doctors, alien, silent, uncertain, had never treated a human before. Not like this. Not as a survivor. Relay sat beside him, her armor gone, her wrists free of the ornamental chains. She had shed the name prize. Now she was just Saralai. "You were supposed to die in that last match," she said quietly. Darren opened one eye. "I did, for a second. Then your voice brought me back." She smiled. In her hand was the little metal locket he'd carried the whole time. She had polished it. The child's crayon drawing inside looked brighter now. "You said her name was Emori," she whispered. Double quotes, "Yeah." Zaralai stood and looked out the infirmary window. Beyond the walls, the arena had begun to collapse physically. And symbolically, crews were dismantling the towers. The Syndicate lords had vanished into silence, too afraid to face the storm of attention now falling from across the galaxy. Protests, broadcasts, remembrance, ceremonies. People everywhere had seen what happened. And they didn't forget. Elder Torren made it official, Saralai said. "You are the last arena victor under the old code, and the last human ever forced to fight." Darren sat up slowly. "What about the others?" he asked. The slave colonies? The camps? Zarelay turned to him, her eyes shining. He's already negotiating. The pressure from the galaxy is too strong now. Your story is everywhere. Amari's name was even spoken in 3 major Senate circles. She's not just your daughter anymore. She's a symbol. Darren's chest tightened. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years he let himself cry. Not from pain, but from the relief of a promise kept. Later that day, as the sun rose over the edge of the Syndicate capital, a small transport ship touched down on the landing field. Its doors opened, and a quiet girl stepped out, holding the hand of a caretaker. She looked around nervously, her hair tied in a braid, a small toy star clipped to her wrist. "Is that him?" she asked. A few steps away, Darren stood waiting, leaning on a cane, breath caught in his throat. He couldn't move, not yet. Not until she called out again, "Papa?" His cane fell. He ran, arms open, tears falling, voice cracking as he caught her in his embrace. The galaxy could have shattered right then and there, and neither of them would have noticed. Xe Relay stood nearby, watching, smiling, arms folded as the sun warmed her skin. Her people were free now. The chains had fallen not by force, but by example. She had believed no one would ever come for them. No one would care. But a human had. Not with weapons. But with memory and kindness. And love. As the sun climbed higher, Elder Torin approached Zarelay. "What will you do now?" he asked. She looked at him, then at Darren and Amari. "I think it's time to learn who I am outside the cage. And the human? He'll help me," she said. "If he ever stops hugging her," Torin chuckled, "let him. He's earned it." As the old arena crumbled in the distance, as the final pieces of tyranny fell to dust, one truth remained: they had tried to make a spectacle. What they got was a story. And stories, real ones, can't be silenced.